Good morning, digital art students. So it is Wednesday, March 25th. I'm going to record a short video on how to use Kleki, a web-based design program, to complete your projects. This is specifically for those students who are home with school Chromebooks. If you do not have a Chromebook and you have a desktop, there are much better programs out there that you can download for free, but this is specifically for Chromebook users. So let's get into it. So this is Kleki. This is the demonstration that I had done yesterday during the live demo Open Studio. It is a web program, so it is useful. It's very good. It's nice because it has some of the similar features as Photoshop, which is layers and those kind of things, but it is not nearly as complicated as Photoshop. Here are some other examples of things that I made with Kleki. This was a mango that I did yesterday. Some of the other programs I'll get into are Krita and Gravit, but that will be on other videos. So, to get to Kleki, unlike any other program, you're going to need to use Google Chrome. That is not Safari. Some people have worked on Safari. And you're going to go to www.kleki.com. To help get there in the future, might as well make a bookmark. So in Chrome, you can press Control D, or if you're with a Mac, Command D, and that will give you add a bookmark to the bookmarks bar, which I have already done here. So I'm going to hit done. I'm going to delete this other one because I don't need two. All right, so Kleki is loaded. I'm going to move myself over to the other side of the screen. So this is my workspace for Kleki. To start a new, over on this side, you've got all your toolbars. There's brushes, layers, some basic color editing features, and then your file menu. Normally auto-saving will be available, but I already have another version of Kleki open, so it's not auto-saving. So for you, you want to be saving your work often as you work. So to make a new document, it should give you one already, but just to make sure it's large enough, I'm going to click New, and then I'm going to check Landscape, and then I'm going to double this up to maybe like 12,000 by 12,000. So that it's nice, large, square format. And I'm going to pick a different color other than white. I like starting with kind of like a gray, and then I'll add color later to it. Just makes it easier. Yes. Boom. So now here is my document. Just like in Photoshop, you can zoom out and zoom in using these. But you can also do Control plus and Control minus. Actually, I would do Control, and then if you have a spinny wheel on your mouse, that's the other way to zoom. There are also, if you click this little help button, will give you some other hotkeys. So for instance, a very important one, just like Photoshop, undo, Control Z or Command Z, and redo, Control Y. And then the other big one is zooming. So control and scroll. So that's control and then scroll with your mouse. So I'm going to reset that. Excellent. Closing. Back to my picture. So the first thing I need to do when I'm creating my drawing is I'm going to go find a picture that I like. Preferably this should be your favorite fruit. Lately, I've been eating a lot of bananas to get my potassium up. If I could spell bananas right. So I'm going to look for a picture of bananas. Now, there's a whole lot of pictures out there on the internet of bananas. I don't want like something like this that has like 50 million bananas, but I also don't want like too simple, which is like just one banana. So I'm gonna pick, let's go with, this one, because, oh, that one's, no, it's pretty big. So let's go with this one. And I'm gonna, actually this one has less extra space and a few less bananas. One isn't too simple, 3 is good, 5 is too many. So I'm gonna copy right click and hit copy, and then go over to Kleki, and I'm gonna hit Control V, and I'm going to paste. Now it's going to import an image, and I'm going to want to click as layer. And then this will allow me to resize it to fill my whole picture, and I'm going to hit OK. So here is my banana. And if I go to the layers menu, you'll see it's on its own layer. I can turn that layer opacity up or down. I'll keep it up high. Before we get into drawing, what I will do is I will make 3 new layers. I'm going to make a layer, call it, and I'm going to double click on it and click big shapes, and I'll hit enter. Then I'll do a second layer, and I'll click medium shapes, and then I'll click a third layer, and I will click tiny shapes and hit rename. So now I've got 3 different layers, 3 different things going on. So I'm going to make sure I'm going to start by working big, then I'm going to gradually use smaller and smaller and smaller brushes for my smaller tiny shapes. So brushes, you don't have a lot of options to choose from, but I would recommend starting with these hard brushes first, then using this second tab when you get into shading. So I'm going to zoom in on my banana a little bit, and I'm going to start with a big shape. So I'm on my layer, big shapes. There are 3 different bananas here, but they're all kind of the same yellow. So I can, with a big brush, I'm going to have my big brush, big hard brush picked, and I'm going to pick a larger, I can preview the size, a larger thing. I'm literally going to just kind of fill this whole shape, all 3 bananas. If you're worried about the edges, zoom in a little closer. I'm not too worried about going over the edges. So the way this works is I'm going to just fill in the drawing, all 3 bananas, one solid yellow shape. And then I'll shrink the brush down and fill the inside. So I'm going to do an outline carefully, 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 all the way around everything. Make my brush bigger using those bracket keys, just like in Photoshop. That's probably the biggest I can do. I'm going to fill this all in, shrink it down, fill this in. Now I got to zoom in a little bit to get up close and personal for those little corners. Shrink my brush down tiny. And do my corners. Smaller brushes for corners, because otherwise you'll just end up with like big blobby shapes, and they won't look nice. They won't have nice crisp edges, especially if you're doing a fruit that has harder edges, or you're doing like a slice of an apple or something like that. So I'm going to clean this up a little bit, go around, check in my edges. Oh, little spot that I'm missing. Found a big area here that I'm going to just touch up. All right, so now I'll zoom back out so you get a full sense of what I'm seeing. I have one big shape. If I turn the picture off, I literally just have one big giant banana. So now is the time to start getting into the medium shapes. So to see the medium shapes, I'm going to actually need to turn my big shape layer off. And I'm going to start to look at medium shapes in this artwork. Medium shapes are, I would consider medium shapes more like these middle shapes, these shapes that are inside that are a little darker. So I'm going to make my brush a little darker, and I'm going to start to pick up these darker colors and color in on the, make sure I'm on the right layer, medium shape layer. I'm going to start to color in these darker shadow shapes. If I can get in this little nook and cranny, I'm going to zoom in a little closer so I can get up close and personal with that.
Sound effects are optional when you're drawing, but you know, we're working from home, so we can make as many weird noises as we want. Oh, that one, the color is a little off, so I'm going to sample again. To sample colors, you can either use this little eyedropper tool and click on it, or if you have a brush selected and you're in brush mode, the other way to get the eyedropper is you just hold down the Alt button. So that's how I keep sampling and then changing colors. So I'm going to sample some of these darker colors, sample, sample, make sure I have the right shapes. There's also like a little shadow shape underneath here, so I will go in and add that shadow. Now again, it doesn't have a crisp edge, so I gotta get up close and personal, the tiny brush to get in there. Boom. While I'm here, I might as well start to, I'm gonna just do a quick kind of up close look. Aha, here's a shadow for this banana. So I will literally, with a hard brush, dark shade, kind of go in. Start to add those shadow shapes. I can even make a pretty big brush because there's kind of a big shadow here. I can add that now. Now right now I'm using a hard brush. To really get that shade, I messed up a little bit, so I'm going to switch to my eraser and just pick off right there. To finish my shading, I probably will want to switch to a soft brush, which is here. So I'll keep that same color, switch to a soft brush, and then start to kind of make that blend a little bit more. I can turn my opacity down to really make the blend smooth. I can also turn blending up, but I'll get into that in a minute. I'm just softening some edges. There's a little bit of green up in here. I'll add that green, make this dark green here. And then do my light green here. And then if you have blending turned up, it will actually pick up the two colors and start to blend the two together. I think I'm missing this whole brown area, so I'll just click on a middle brown, kind of, oh, I'm going to switch to a hard brush, do a hard edge first. As a rule of thumb, what's always recommended is that you start by laying down a base color with a hard brush, and before you go in with little softer brushes to get your shadows and those kind of things. So now let's turn everything on. Let's get a zoom back and get a bigger picture of what we're doing here. We can start to see what's shaping up. I'm starting to see some bananas, but the key different things I'm missing shadows here, and I'm missing shadows up here to kind of get clear three separate shapes. So I'm going to go back to my medium shape layer, and I'm going to start to, I'm only going to focus on the shadows here and here. So I'm going to come back in and hard brush first, go in with a dark color or darker yellow, and do a nice crisp edged shadow here. It looks like, come in, and then I'll do a nice crisp edge up here so that I can get three different shapes. So now that I've got my kind of darker shadow shapes, ooh, let's get some of this greenish fade here. I'm going to start to, I have my hard edge shadows, I'm going to move to my soft brush and start to blend and fade that out into the yellow. So I can kind of pick up more yellow, blend it in. So it's creating a little bit more of a smoother shape. If I turn blending way up and opacity down, I can actually like smear some of that green color together. So let me show you on an area where there's more contrast. So I can kind of smear and blend these two browns together if I want to, but I actually need a hard edge there. So I'm going to smear here though to kind of fade it out, make it look soft. I might even do some smearing over here of this kind of green to make it look a little more smooth. So once again, the opacity is way down and the blending is way up. So I can do that same here. Let's sample a little of that darker yellow. Turn blending down here for this. Start to lay in this slightly darker yellow shadow shape here and lighter dark shadow shape here. All right, so this video is starting to add up, so I'll try to wrap this up in the next couple of minutes because we're at 15 minutes. It looks to me, which is great. So now when I'm back out, zoom way out, let's touch that up in there. Zoom out. I'm starting to get 3 bananas, except for right here. So turn this off again one last time. We'll get in. I think it's just that I need to shade here so that this banana stands out. I need a little of that green. And then there's sometimes to get a separation between two shapes, it's really just a difference of light versus dark. So you may need to exaggerate your shading a little bit to kind of get too exaggerated. To get a crisp edge, now I'll go with my blending way up, my opacity down to kind of soften that green. This banana is now a little bit not too ripe, but whatever. Layers, big shapes. Yeah, so we're starting to have a nice banana show up. Last but not least, I'll go to tiny shapes, and this is just a little bit of texture somewhere. So the thing I'm going to focus on maybe is like here and here, just some little tiny roughness. So I'll turn these off, and I'll just focus on this for this demonstration purposes, right? So in this shape here, you've got a light brown, but you also have these little tiny pieces of dark brown. So I'll go with a harder brush. I can even add one of these textured brushes, and I'll show you what that is. So when I pick up that darker brown, it's actually going to add a little bit of, if I turn this second around, it's going to add a little bit of fake texture, fake rough texture to it. I'm just doing a little click, 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 click to show you what it looks like. Now I can make it smaller. I can also, if you don't do click, 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 what'll happen is you can kind of smear it and it creates like a fake charcoal look to it. So that's how you would do rough textures. There is a little brush to kind of create feathery textures. I don't know. You can play around with those a little bit. Just roughing this brown piece up. So now if I turn the medium on, it starts to look a little shaded. The key is that texture is created by shading and roughing, using rougher brushes. Even kind of with that rough brush selected, blend in some of that darker. So I'm going to zoom out, give you a sense of the whole picture. Not bad, 15 minutes. So this was first, second, and then third, putting it all together. Then I'll just turn off my layer for my picture. And then the only other thing to do would be to just touch up and make a nice background. So I can go down to my, down to my layer, and I'll just go in here. And this is how you actually make like a bucket fill, I think. Oh no, it's like a blocky fill. I like to just pick a good color. So orange, or this is kind of a yellowy orange, so I could go kind of like a color that goes well with yellowy orange. Maybe it's like a lime green if I'm thinking analogous colors. And I'll just kind of brush, oh, my opacity is too low. Brush this into the background. My blending is too high now. Blend this into the background. Now it's looking like it's sitting on a table. Maybe I turn the opacity down a little bit high and just fade the two colors together. If you want it to be a straight line, you got to be a little careful. I think you can click. Yeah, so if I hold down Shift and I click here and I click over here, it makes a perfectly straight line. So I can use that to kind of get straight lines. Let's do a little blue to make it look kind of like a sky. Ooh, it's looking good. Last but not least, I'll probably just add a little layer, new layer in between the background and the banana and give myself a shadow. So with a very soft brush, very low opacity, I'll just kind of brush in and make it look, just helps make it look like it's sitting on a tabletop. It's a little too intense right now, so I can just turn the opacity of that layer way down. So that is Kleki. Last but not least, I will want to save my work. It will download to your desktop as a Kleki file, which you can then upload to the Google Classroom. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me or comment on this video to let me know how you're doing. Otherwise, please try to have this uploaded to the Google Classroom by Friday. This upcoming Friday, March 27th, we are going to start vector drawing next week. So that's it for me. Hope you're safe and well. Have a great day.